What's up? And ho ho ho! It's Marty Yitram, the geeky American otaku. We are on the fast track to Christmas. Less than 4 days to go. I hope everyone is having a safe, happy holiday season so far. I'm not sure if I'm going to make another video before the end of the year, but I thought I'd get at least one out this month. And it's another edition of 15-Minute Game Show Reviews. This time, I'm going to be covering a game show that's so obscure, how obscure is it? That it only aired 6 episodes. 6. However, it'll also be a tribute to its host who passed away this summer, and he was a big part of my childhood. Anyway, if you think you know about short-lived game shows based on CD-ROM games, then you don't know jack!
Hi, I'm Troy Stevens. Just warming up for tonight's show. And if you think practice makes perfect, then you don't know jack!
It's You Don't Know Jack, the show where high culture and pop culture collide like Tina Turner and Elton John at a wig sale. And now, here's our host, Mr. Troy Stevens.
Thank you, and to those of you watching at home, hello. Go like this. Got something in your teeth, right here. That's not it. That's not it. That's it. Chicken or beef. Welcome to the special director's cut edition of You Don't Know Jack with 10 additional minutes of never-before-seen footage. We have 3 contestants. Let's cheat them. Let's meet them now.
Yes, that was the late, great Paul Reubens, aka Pee Wee Herman, playing fake host Troy Stevens. I mentioned earlier in the year I was going to do a tribute to Paul Reubens at the end of one of my other videos, and that's why I'm reviewing this game show. For those who don't know, You Don't Know Jack is based on a video game series that, as mentioned in the intro, is, quote, where high culture and pop culture collide. Although the people who made this game may have been high when they made it. The first game was released by Jellyvision, now Jackbox Games, on CD-ROM for Windows and Mac and the original Sony PlayStation back in 1995. Branded as the irreverent quiz show party game, You Don't Know Jack combines trivia and comedy and is styled as a game show, sort of. It became a huge success and saw several new releases over the years, most recently in 2018 as You Don't Know Jack full stream on modern consoles and smart devices such as the iPad, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Anyway, as early as 1997, there actually were plans to develop You Don't Know Jack into a TV game show, but it wouldn't be until the summer of 2001 when it finally made it to air, as Paul Reubens, who was actually chosen by the developers to host it, wasn't sure about doing so before finally agreeing to it. You Don't Know Jack would debut on ABC on June 20th, 2001, and ran for just 6 episodes, with the last episode airing on July 18th of that year. As I mentioned, the host was Paul Reubens, who played the character of Troy Stevens. Born in Peekskill, New York in 1952, Paul grew up in Sarasota, Florida, where, as a child, he frequented the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, which inspired him to become an entertainer, and watching reruns of I Love Lucy inspired him to take on comedy. After graduating high school, he was turned down by the prestigious Juilliard School and Carnegie Mellon University, twice in the latter case, but he would ultimately be accepted into the California Institute of Arts. After moving to Cali, he became a Fuller Brush salesman and worked at restaurants, where he also began performing in comedy clubs. Starting in 1977, he made 14 appearances on Chuck Barris's bizarre talent search show, The Gong Show. In fact, here he is with his future Playhouse co-star John Paragon. He also did a bit alongside Charlotte McGinnis in a boy-girl act called The Hilarious Betty and Eddie. I can't find a video of that, sorry. And he was also a bachelor on the 1979 episode of The Dating Game. Also in 1977, Paul joined the Los Angeles-based improv troupe The Groundlings, where in 1978 he would create the character that would make him world famous, Pee Wee Herman. After being turned down by Saturday Night Live in 1980 in favor of Gilbert Gottfried, Reubens teamed up with fellow Groundlings Phil Hartman, John Paragon, Lynn Marie Stewart, Edie McClurg, and John Moody, and began performing what was called the Pee Wee Herman Show at venues in Los Angeles. And in 1981, a performance at the Roxy Theater was aired on HBO, helping him gain national exposure. Paul, always in character as Pee Wee, made appearances throughout the early 1980s, most notably on NBC's Late Night with David Letterman, helping him gain even more fame. In 1985, Pee Wee hit the silver screen for the first time in the hit film Pee Wee's Big Adventure, which went on to make more than $40 million at the box office on just a budget of $7 million, and it was also the directorial debut of Tim Burton. Then in 1986, Pee Wee became the face of Saturday morning TV when CBS premiered Pee Wee's Playhouse. Popular with kids and adults, Pee Wee's Playhouse ran for 5 seasons and won 22 Emmy Awards. He also appeared in a second movie in 1988, Big Top Pee Wee. As you can see here, I was a huge Pee Wee fan when I was a little kid. This is me at age 5 in 1988, about to go trick-or-treating, dressed as Pee Wee. Oh, I also had more hair then. I wish I'd kept that Pee Wee doll. It'd probably be worth something now. Anyway, the last episode of Pee Wee's Playhouse aired in November 1990. Although CBS wanted to keep the show going, Paul Reubens was suffering from burnout and he wanted to focus on other work. CBS actually aired reruns of Playhouse until the summer of 1991 when Paul was arrested in Sarasota, Florida. I won't go into details why, look it up on Wikipedia. And he decided to retire the Pee Wee character, though Pee Wee did make one last appearance at the 1991 MTV Music Awards. Paul would continue to make appearances in movies and TV over the next 30 years, including in Batman Returns, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Matilda, Dunstan Checks In, Murphy Brown, Mystery Men, Everybody Loves Raymond, Blow, Ally McBeal, Reno 911 and its film version, Reno 911 Miami, 30 Rock, Dirt, Pushing Daisies, Tom Goes to the Mayor, Tim and Eric Awesome Show Great Job, Gotham, The Blacklist, and Mosaic. Paul also did voiceover work over the years, voicing characters such as Locke in Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, Batmite in Batman the Brave and the Bold, Jokey Smurf in The Smurfs 1 and 2, Rex in Star Wars Rebels and on the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge ride at Disneyland and Walt Disney World, Reuben in Chowder, Gnome Ruler in Adventure Time, Professor Parenthesis in Phineas and Ferb, Pavel in Tron Uprising, and Mike the Spike in DC's Legends of Tomorrow. In 2009, Paul announced he would revive the Pee Wee Herman stage show, which now included elements and characters from Pee Wee's Playhouse. The show debuted in November of 2009 and due to high demand, moved to Club Nokia at LA Live, running until February of 2010. Pee Wee also appeared in a video with the Playhouse characters on FunnyOrDie.com. In November of 2010, the show relocated to New York City, running until January of 2011, including an airing on HBO, 30 years after first airing on that network. In 2016, Pee Wee would appear in a new film on Netflix produced by Judd Apatow and directed by John Lee, titled Pee Wee's Big Holiday, co-starring Joe Manganiello, to positive reception. Sadly, this would be the last time Pee Wee would appear on film. In 2017, Paul Reubens was diagnosed with both myelogenous leukemia and metastatic lung cancer, but he did not make this diagnosis known to the public until after he had died from acute hypoxic respiratory failure on July 30th, 2023, at the age of 70, when a letter was posted on his Instagram. He will be greatly missed, but the laughter he brought to us as Pee Wee Herman will live forever. The announcer for this show was Tom Gottlieb, in his character from the games Cookie Masterson. That's basically all I can tell you about him. Sorry. Anyway, here's how the game was played. It was not staged, as Troy would point out. There were actual contestants playing for actual money. 3 contestants competed each show. There were no returning champions.
As a matter of fact, the only thing illegitimate on this show is me. And my staff reminds me every time they call me by that cute nickname they have for me that starts with Bass and ends with Todd.
The first round had Troy asking questions usually worth $1,000 apiece, although some opening questions were asked for lower amounts. Most questions were multiple choice, like the computer game, but some were simply open-ended questions with no choices. The player who buzzed in and got the question correct won the money. Now, for most of the game, unlike the computer games, there was no penalty for a wrong answer. After about 2 or 3 questions, round 1 ended with a mini round called Dis or Dat. Similar to the video game, Troy would read from a list of items and the contestants would have to choose one of the 2 possible answers, or sometimes both. Correct answers added $1,000, while incorrect answers took away $1,000, and then Troy would reveal the correct answer. Dis or Dat ended after 6 clues. Round 2 was the same as round 1, but with the dollar values doubled to $2,000 apiece for each correct answer. This round ended with a feature called the $2 million question. The question's value would start at $2 million, but it decreased rapidly over time, starting from the moment Troy began to read it. And while he was doing so, a lengthy distraction would occur, such as Troy being attacked by ninjas, him setting the question card on fire, or fighting for the possession of the card with a dog. During this time, the question's value continued to decrease, and it would typically be under $200 when he finally finished reading the question. In the last episode, it was only worth $4. Whoever eventually answered the question correctly won whatever money was left. A wrong answer meant the other players had a chance to steal for the cash, but the money continued to decrease until somebody buzzed in with the right answer. It's never known what would have happened had the value actually reached 0. Basically, this was just completely pointless and meant for a laugh. Round 3 increased the value of the questions to $3,000 apiece, with one question under the category of things that sound dirty but aren't. And you can see here.
For $2,000, which of these is not a photography term? Ball head. Soft box. Rear end exposure. Headshot. Danielle.
Ball head.
Ball head. I'm sorry, that's wrong. Scott.
Softbox.
No, wrong too. Evelyn, it's up to you.
Rear end exposure.
That is correct for $2,000.
The final question of round 3 was worth $5,000, and it had the contestants place opaque dividers between them. Players would then be asked a math question that combined elements of pop culture and common knowledge, and performing the operations in the order of Troy read them. The players had 30 seconds to write down their answer, during which a distraction would take place, such as a baby crying and peeing on them, a mariachi band playing in the background, and children poorly playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on violins. At the end of the time, the partitions were removed, and the correct answer was revealed by Troy. The players then revealed their answers, with the highest scorer going first. Any player answering correctly earned $5,000. At the end of this question, the 2 higher scorers moved on to the Jack Attack. In the event of a tie for second place, one more sudden death style question was read to the tied players. The first to buzz in is the only one allowed to give a response. If they answered correctly, they moved on. If they didn't, their opponent moved on instead. The eliminated player received a consolation prize, such as a deodorant gift basket, a supposed year's supply of Dole pineapple tidbits, a year's supply of bubblegum, and the clapper. And the eliminated player would be seen on camera disappearing via a CGI effect. The last 2 players moved on to the final round, called the Jack Attack. Troy's head would pop up on the screen as both a comical sight and a possible distraction. The players were then given a category and a series of clues. A series of answers would then fly onto the screen. When an answer that fit both the category and the clue appeared on the screen, the players would buzz in and yell out the answer. Correct answers were worth $5,000. An incorrect answer, however, deducted $5,000 from the player's score. Not just once, but every time they buzzed in wrong. After 6 questions, the player with the higher score won the game and kept all their money, while the other player received the same consolation prize the other loser got. Now, in the first episode only, they also offered a brand new car, but we never saw who won it.
I told you somebody would be driving home in this new car.
Damn it, Troy. Anyway, that was the whole deal with You Don't Know Jack. Now it's time to grade it. This show was something. It wasn't really a bad something or a good something, but it was something. The show only ran for 6 episodes in the summer of 2001 before being quickly canceled and becoming more or less forgotten, mainly due to very low ratings. Now, You Don't Know Jack is a good game and has a good format that can work as a game show, but the results here I think were somewhat mixed. While there were some funny moments here and there, the focus on a game show, even on the ones that emphasize comedy, should almost always be on the contestants, not the host. This works in shows like Hollywood Squares, Match Game, The Gong Show, and even a show like When Ben Signs Money, which was almost as hard as Jeopardy in terms of question material. But even so, the focus is still on the contestants and not the hosts or the celebrity panelists. The contestants were there, and they did compete for real money, but I feel like the show is more focused on Paul Reubens' character of Troy Stevens and his antics. The questions themselves were similar to those in the video games. The Dis or Dat segment and the Jack Attack round at the end was pretty faithful to the games as well. They also had some question categories that were completely random, which was also a feature in the game. The only segment that wasn't in the video game was the $2 million question, which was just unnecessary and really served no purpose. It was just there for Troy to be funny, although the results were somewhat mixed. As for Paul Reubens himself, well, what can be said? He will be remembered as one of the greatest comic talents of all time, regardless of whether he played Pee Wee Herman or some other character. I have a soft spot for the Spleen from Mystery Men. However, I have mixed feelings about his character of Troy Stevens here. Troy was supposed to be a stereotypical game show host, and Paul played that character really well, which shows how talented he really was. My biggest beef was the fact that he played a character instead of being himself, although that was probably the point. He made jokes about the contestants, but he wasn't really outright mean to them. But I think that this show was turned into more of a starring vehicle for Paul Reubens. Not that was a bad thing, instead of trying to be an actual game show, even though it supposedly was. Not to mention that there were several random moments that either had no bearing on the gameplay and or were just meant for comedic effect, such as the distractions during the elimination math problem, which I also have a problem with. The math problems can be a little deceptive, and if you suck at math like I do, it's hard to come up with the answer in such a short amount of time, and the distraction, of course, does not help. All being said, I feel You Don't Know Jack was a decent mid-attempt at turning a PC game about a fake quiz show into a real one, and as such, it gets a mid-grade, a C. Now, the part where I talk about how I'd revive the show if I was given the chance. I really don't know if the show could be revived now, mainly because there hasn't been a new release of You Don't Know Jack since 2018, and there hasn't been any indication from Jackbox Games that they plan to revive the franchise. Of course, the main reason You Don't Know Jack bombed in 2001 was ratings, plain and simple. It could have succeeded if ABC had believed in it more and maybe not aired it in the summer, when their lead-in was reruns of The Drew Carey Show. If ABC had aired it after their mega hit at the time, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, or another one of their hit shows, and maybe not during the summer, it probably might have gotten better ratings. Or maybe ABC was just the wrong network for it, and it could have done better on a cable channel like Comedy Central. Anyway, if the show did come back for a new generation, I'd like it to be more of an actual quiz show with comedic elements, as opposed to being a starring vehicle for the host that focuses more on comedy than gameplay. The game could still have 3 rounds, with round 1 questions worth $1,000 apiece, with a Dis or Dat at the end of the round, $2,000 questions in round 2, but instead of the $2 million question, they can use one of the other question types from the PC games, such as the Impossible Question, Bug Out, or Elephant Mustard, Teddy Roosevelt, or Dracula, and its derivatives. Basically, that's a 4-choice version of Dis or Dat. Round 3 again will have $3,000 questions, including things that sound dirty but aren't, and it will end with an elimination question worth $5,000. Either the math problem from before, minus the distraction, or it's the put the choices into order, then buzz in and see if you are right question from the PC game. I'd also include the screw feature from the games, where a player who buzzes in can screw one of their opponents by forcing them to answer a question. If the player who is screwed answers correctly, they steal that money amount from their opponent. Otherwise, it's the other way around. And each contestant would get 2 screws for the whole show, but they cannot be used during the Dis or Dat segment or taken to the Jack Attack. And of course, the Jack Attack would be the final round as before, with each answer worth $5,000 and the winner keeping all their money. The runners-up, however, would get $2,000 for second place and $1,000 for third. As for the host, well, that's tough. Paul Reubens is irreplaceable, and I really don't want it to be a starring vehicle for a comedian again, so maybe the host could be Tom Gottlieb as his character from the games, Cookie Masterson, or they could go with a more well-known comedian playing himself, such as Frank Nicotero, Graham Elwood, or Chris Hardwick, or maybe a YouTube comedian, such as one of my favorites, Tom Grossi. Anyway, that's my most recent episode of 15-Minute Game Show Reviews. This is probably going to be my last video before Christmas and probably my last video of the year. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to follow me on Instagram and on Space Hey. I'm Marty Yitram, the Geeky American Otaku. To everyone who watches, thank you for following me this past year, and I hope that whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Tet, Eid al-Fitr, or Festivus, may we all find peace. And remember to think of your fellow man. God bless us, everyone.